Hi everyone, welcome back to another video of your course MATH102B, Differential and Integral Calculus. This is your instructor, Engineer Janaika A. Tapiador. So in the previous videos, we already tackled the review topics of your algebra, trigonometry, and analytical geometry. So today, we officially start the course on calculus, and we'll be starting with your functions. So this will be the topic learning outcome of your module 2. Sorry for the error there. That should be module 2. The students shall be able to discuss the different functions and operations on functions. So this will be the content of this particular video or module. So you have the definition of functions, the function notation, roots of function, domain and range, function composition, types and operations of functions, and of course the graph of your functions. So what is a function really? So it says here the simplest definition is an equation will be a function if for any x in the domain of the equation, when we say domain, this is all the x's that can be plugged into the equation. The equation will yield exactly one value of y when we evaluate the equation at a specific value of x. So medyo parang complicated siya in terms of definition, but it's usually easier to understand this particular definition with an example. So let's take a look at some examples. We are to determine if each of the following are functions. So let's start with letter A. Y is equal to x squared plus 1. So is this a function or not? So it says here, this first one is a function. Given an x, if we try to put in any value of x, there is only one way to square it and then add 1 to the result. So no matter what value of x you put into the equation, there is only one possible value of y when we evaluate the equation at that value of x. So for example, we let x be equal to 1. So 1 squared plus 1, you get a y equal to 2. So if x is equal to 1, then we get a value of y equal to 2. So if we try to put in an x value equal to 2, we get a value of y equal to 5. So this is a function since for any value of x that you try to plug into the equation, you only get one value of y. So that is the definition of a function. Let's take a look at another example. What if you have y squared is equal to x plus 1? So let's check if this is a function or not. So it says here, to see that this isn't a function is fairly simple. Choose a value of x. Say x is equal to 3. Then plug this into the equation. So you have y squared is equal to 3 plus 1, or that's equal to 4. Now you can see that there are two possible values of y that we could use here. We could use y is equal to 2 or y is equal to negative 2. Since there are two possible values of y we get from a single x, then this means that this equation is not a function. So again, the definition of a function, pag may in-input kang value of x, dapat isa lang yung value ng y na makukuha mo. Pag dalawa yung nakuha mong value or tatlo, then definitely that is not a function. So let's go to the next example, or rather the next topic. You have your function notation. We need to take a quick look at function notation. When we say function notation, this is nothing more than a fancy way of writing the y in the function that will allow us to simplify notation and sum of our work a little. So for example, you have this function y is equal to 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. There are actually a lot of ways on how you could write this equation. So it says here, using function notation, we could write this as any of the following. We could write it as such. I believe you are familiar with this particular notation. So this is simply read as your f of x, which is also equivalent to y. Parang minsan kasi it's very convenient to write this, especially if we wanna put in the value of x that you want to put in the equation. But aside from that, we could also write it this way: h of x or w of x, g's of x, r's of x, or y's of x. Any variable will actually do. So medyo pampaganda lang or kumbaga pampaarte. So do not be scared whenever you see any of the following, or pwede din namang b's of x, ano pa ba? D's of x. Pag usually nakikita nyo na to, huwag na po kayong matatakot kasi it's just a fancy way of writing your y. So just a point to remember, recall that this is not a letter times x. This is just a fancy way of writing your variable y. So let's take a, why is it useful to write it this way? So it says here, well, let's take the function above and let's get the value of the function at x is equal to negative 3. So using function notation, we represent the value of the function at x is equal to negative 3, or we write it as f of negative 3. Function notation gives us a nice compact way of representing the values of the function. Now, how do we actually evaluate the function? That's really simple. Everywhere we see an x on the right side, so, diba, ito, so you have your x squared and x, we will substitute whatever is in the parenthesis on the left side. So, kung ano yung value dito, isa-substitute nyo siya sa lahat ng variable na, which is in this case, x na nakikita nyo dun sa right side of the equation. Which gives us, so for example, f of negative 3, so that will be 2 multiplied by negative 3 squared minus 5 multiplied by negative 3 plus 3. So, kung ang value ng x na binigay is negative 3, again, you just simply substitute negative 3 on all of the x variables that you see, such that you will come up with this 2 times 9 plus 15 plus 3 to give you a value of f of 3 equal to 36. So that's just how you evaluate your functions. So let's try to work on other example. So given that f of x is equal to negative x squared plus 6x minus 11, we are to find each of the following: your f of 2, your f of t minus 3, and your f of 4x minus 1. So let's work on each of the examples. So unahin na po natin si f of 2. So f of x is negative 2. Sorry, dapat dito pala 2 na yan. I-correct ko na lang po itong mga to sa notes na ibibigay ko sa inyo, or the presentation that I will be providing you. So f of 2 is equal to negative the quantity 2 squared plus 6 times 2 minus 11, which will give you negative 4 plus 12 minus 11. And when you perform the necessary operation, f of 2 becomes negative 3. So that is the answer for number 1 or letter A. Example number 2, letter A. Now let's take a look at the second. What if you are given f of t minus 3? So f of t minus 3, again, yung t minus 3, isa-substitute lang natin siya sa lahat ng x values or x variables na nakikita natin, such that we will have this negative quantity t minus 3 quantity squared plus 6 multiplied by t minus 3 minus 11. Or if we try to expand this, we'll get negative t squared minus 60 plus 9 plus 6t minus 18 minus 11. And then if we try to simplify this by distributing the negative sign to each of the quantity here, you will get negative t squared plus 60 minus 9 plus 60 minus 29. And of course, combining like terms together, you will have an f of t minus 3 value equivalent to negative t squared plus 12t plus 38. So, yan po yung sagot. And then, going to the last example. So, what if you want to get the value of the function at f of 4x minus 1? So, again, si 4x minus 1, isa-substitute lang natin siya sa lahat ng x variables na nakikita natin sa right side of the equation. And then we will have, so you will have this negative 4x minus 1 quantity squared plus 6 multiplied by the quantity 4x minus 1 minus 11. And of course, we try to simplify our equation such that we have this negative quantity 16x squared minus 8x plus 1 plus 24x minus 6x, sorry, dapat may x dyan, minus, or wala pala, sorry. Wait lang, let me just erase that. Okay. Plus 24x minus 6 minus 11. Then, of course, itong negative sign, i-distribute natin siya dun sa whole ng quantity. So, we will have negative 16x squared plus 8x minus 1 plus 24x minus 6 minus 11. And then, of course, we further simplify by combining like terms together to get a value equal to negative 16x squared plus 32x minus 18. So, that's how you evaluate a function. Diba? Medyo easy lang naman siya. So, let's go to the third part of this module. You have your roots of a function. So, it says here, all throughout a calculus course, we will be finding roots of function. A root of a function is nothing more than a number for which the function is equivalent to 0. In other words, when you want to find the roots of a function, you just solve the equation by equating it to 0 or ganito siya. So, kunyari you have a function g of x, tapos si g of x gagawin mo lang 0. So, let's take a look at an example. So, kunyari you want to determine the roots of this particular function, f of t, equal to 90 cubed minus 18t squared plus 6t. So, we would need to solve this, di ba? Sabi ko, equate mo lang siya sa 0 such that 90 cubed minus 18t squared plus 6t is equal to 0. And then, hahanapin mo lang yung roots. I believe you are already familiar with this kasi ginagawa nyo na ito dati sa algebra. So it says here, what do we do first? We should factor the equation as much as possible. And then doing this gives you, diba, factor natin kasi you can factor 3t. So 3t multiplied by 3t squared minus 60 plus 2 is equal to 0. Next, recall that if a product of two things are 0, then, or both of them had to be 0. What does this mean? So this means that your 3t is equal to 0 or 3t squared minus 6t plus 2 is equal to 0. So ibig sabihin, yung isang root mo ay equivalent na siya sa 0. So you get a value of t equal to 0 such that if t is equal to 0, the function is equivalent to 0. So another one, ito naman yung ating, we get the roots of this particular equation. So from the first, it's clear that one of the roots then must be t is equal to 0. That's what I mentioned earlier. And then to get the remaining roots, we will need to use the quadratic formula on the second equation. Doing this gives you, so recall this quadratic formula, na-encounter natin to sa previous videos. So you have your x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of the discriminant divided by 2a. So if we try then to put in the values that we have, we will have this equation. And then simplifying it further will give you this. Tapos i-simplify pa natin. Okay? So from there, you will have 6 plus square root of, kasi ito pwede natin siyang gawing 4 multiplied by 3, di ba? All over 6. And then, you get the square root of 4, kaya lumabas si 2. So, you have 6 plus minus 2 square root of 3 all over 6. Thus, we could still simplify this further. Diba? Tanggalin natin to, diba? 3 plus or minus 3 square root of 3. Parang lang siya. Sinimplify lang natin ito. 2. And then, simplifying it further, you have 3 all over 3 is 1. So, you will get 1 plus or minus square root of 3 all over 3, which you could further simplify, getting rid of the radical. So, di ba parang minultiply mo lang naman siya ng 1, such that you will get 1 plus or minus the quantity square root of 9, kasi 3 times 3 is 9, all over 3 square root of 3. Or that's 1 plus minus 3 all over 3 square root of 3, or you get this particular value. Parang sinimplify lang natin siya ng unti-unti. So this is another of the root, 1 plus minus 1 all over the square root of 3. Now, to complete the problem, here is a complete list of all of the root of this function. So you have t is equal to 0, t is equal to 1 plus 1 square over square root of 3, or t is equal to 1 minus 1 all over square root of 3. So next we go to the domain and range. One of the most important ideas about functions is that of a domain and range of the function. I believe you already took this Math 100. Yung pagkakaiba nilang dalawa. So in the simplest terms, the domain of a function is the set of all values that you can plug into a function, and the function can still exist having a real number of its value. So for the domain, we need to avoid division by 0, square roots of negative numbers, logarithms of 0, and logarithm of negative numbers. Kailangan iwasan siya such that your value for the function is still a real number. So when we say the range naman of a function, this is simply the set of all possible values that a function can take. Parang similar sila in terms of definition, but later on with the examples, we get to see na medyo malaki din pala yung pagkakaiba nilang dalawa. So let's take a look at an example so that we could differentiate domain from range. So let's have this. So for letter A, let's find the domain and range of your f of x is equal to 5x minus 3. So we know that this is a line and that it's not a horizontal line because the slope is 5. Di ba parang it takes the form y is equal to mx plus b. Di ba? Parang your slope-intercept form. This means that this function can take on any value, and so the range is all real numbers. And when we use mathematical notation, this becomes the range is equal to negative infinity to positive infinity. Kasi when you graph this, di ba line lang naman siya. So, ibig sabihin, yung line is infinite from the negative value to your positive value. Any number within that particular range. So this is more generally a polynomial, and we know that we can plug any value into a polynomial, and so the domain in this case is also all set of real numbers. So yan yung domain is, for this particular equation, pareho lang din siya sa range. So your domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity. But the domain and the range is not always the same, as we will take a look at the next example. So letter B, your gist of t is equal to the square root of 4 minus 7t. So this is a square root, and we know that the square root are always positive or 0. Then, if we know that particular property of a square root, then the range will be from 0 to infinity. So, kasi hindi siya pwedeng maging negative. So, 0 to infinity. So, for the domain, we have a little bit of work to do, but not much, okay? We need to make sure that we don't take any square roots of a negative number, so we need to require that 4 minus 7t is greater than or equal to 0. Kasi bawal nga po siya sa negative numbers. And then, from here, we just solve your t. So, solve lang natin ito. Such that you have 4, transpose lang natin si 70 sa kabila. 4 is greater than or equal to 7t, or dividing both sides by 7, you will get, tapos parang switch lang natin, you will get a value of t less than or equal to 4 all over 7. So therefore, the domain is t is less than or equal to 4 over 7, or that is a negative number to a value of 4 over 7. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Pag nagbigay ka ng value ng t equivalent sa kunyari negative 3, diba? Tapos pag plug-in mo tong t value na to doon sa equation na yan, you will get a positive value of your function. So, ang limit niya is any negative number hanggang sa 4 over 7. Ibig sabihin, pag 4 over 7 naman, yung plug mong value dyan, you will get a function equivalent to 0. Kasi pag tumaas na dito, say for example, nilagyan mo ng value na 5, hindi na siya pwede. Kasi you will get a negative square root, which is not supposed to be. Na hindi pwede, di ba? So, dyan mo makikita yung pagkakaiba ng domain sa range. So, let's go to the fifth topic, your function composition. So, the next topic that we need to discuss here is that of a function composition. So, the composition of f of x and g of x is, so ganyan. So, when we see this value, para siyang f of g's of x. So, yan yung pagkakabasa niya, f of g's of x. So, ano ba ibig sabihin nito? Compositions are evaluated by plugging the second function listed into the first function listed. Note as well that order is important here, as interchanging the order will more often than not result in a different answer. Kumbaga, pag nakakita ka po ng ganito, or ng ganito, kukunin mo muna si g's of x, tapos pag nakuha mo na yung value ng g's of x, tsaka mo siya ipapasok dun sa value ng f of x. Kumbaga, yung f of x mo is yung value ng g's of x. Let's take a look at an example so that you get to understand it better. So let's have this example. Given that your f of x is equal to 3x squared minus x plus 10, and your gist of x is equal to 1 minus 20x, we are to find each of the following. Letter A, your f of gist of 5, and then your gist of f of x. So let's solve for letter A. So pinakaunang gagawin is to find gist of 5. So ibig sabihin, doon po sa equation ng gist of x, hahanapin natin si gist of 5. So again, i-substitute mo lang yung gist of 5 dun sa x value na nakikita mo dyan. So such that if this is your gist of x equation, we plug gist of 5 into it. So we have 1 minus 20 multiplied by 5, or you got gist of 5 equivalent to 1 minus 100, or your gist of 5 is negative 99. Ngayon, meron ka ng gist of 5. Itong value ng gist of 5 na nakuha mo, siya naman po yung ipa-plug in mo dun sa f of x. So, parang magiganyan. We are to find the function of your gist of 5. So, kung ito yung notation mo or yung function mo ng f of x, ipa-plug in natin yung value ng gist of 5 na nakuha natin kanina, which is negative 99. So that will be 3 multiplied by negative 99 squared minus negative 99 plus 10. Or you will get 29,403 plus 99 plus 10, or your f of gist of 5 value is equivalent to 29,512. So, ganun po yung function composition. Kumbaga, may kukunin ka munang function, and then yung value na nakuha mo sa function na yon, i-input mo siya dun sa isa pang function. So, yan. So, erase ko yan. Yan pala yung final answer. So, your f of gist of 5 is equivalent to 29,512. So, let's take a look at another example. Diba kasi yung value ng function mo, hindi naman siya kailangan na palaging real number. Pwede siyang maging variable. As with the case that we have here. Parang sabi niya, we will get the gist of f of x. Diba? So, gist of f of x, ibig sabihin, yung f of x na value, ilalagay lang natin siya doon sa gist of x na value. Since yung f of x, di ba ito na yun, wala ka namang kailangang baguhin. Yan na yun. So, ibig sabihin, itong buong equation lang na ito, ipa-plug in natin doon sa x value na nasa gist of 5. So, such that you will have gist of f of x is equal to 1 minus 20 multiplied by 3x squared minus x plus 10. And if we try then to distribute 20 to this quantity, you will get 1 minus 60x squared plus 20x minus 200. And then combining like terms together and simplifying it further will give you negative 60x squared plus 20x minus 199. So again, kunyari gist of f of x, kukunin mo na yung value yung f of x, and then you plug that value to the gist of x. So again, lagi yung kung ano yung naandito sa pinaka-right, yun yung uunahin. Kasi pwede, pag trinay nyo naman na, if you try then to get, di ba, the f of gist of x, kunyari ganyan yung binigay, iba din pong value yung makukuha ninyo. Kasi ito yung unahin mo. So let's go to the sixth part of your module. You have the types and operations of function. So for the types of operation of function, you have your inverse function, trigonometric, exponential, natural exponential, and of course your logarithmic function. Pero for this particular video, hindi na natin kailangang i-check yung si trigonometric function and si in the inverse function. We will be dealing with the three of this. But these are just some types of your functions. So let's take a look at the exponential function. So starting with, let's say your b, a variable b, which is greater than 0, as long as your b is not equivalent to -1. So greater than 0 as long as it's not equal to 1. An exponential function is then a function in the form of f of x is equal to b raised to x. Diba parang when you see something that is raised, kunyari, 3 squared, ganyan. So, ibig sabihin, this is actually an exponential in exponential form. And a type of your exponential function will be, kunyari, your y is equal to 3 raised to x. So, ibig sabihin, this is an exponential function. Or kunyari, your f of x, wait lang, hirap nito. Yan. So, kunyari, your f of x, or your, f of x is equal to 11 raised to x. So, that's an exponential function. So, let me just erase that and then we continue. So, note that we avoid b is equal to 1 because that will give the constant function of f of x is equal to 1. So, kaya ina-avoid natin yung b is equal to 1 kasi diba, 1 raised to x. Wherein x is any number, ang magiging value niya lang din is 1. So, we try to avoid that. And of course, we try to avoid b is equal to 0 since this would also give a constant function. And if we avoid negative values of b for the following reason. So, suppose we try to allow b to be negative. So, kunyari, nilagay natin is b is equal to negative. So, g is equal to, or g of x is equal to -4 raised to x. Doing some evaluation, kunyari your g of 2, or we get the value of x or your function equal, if x is equal to 2. So, g of 2 is equal to -4 raised to 2, which is 16. And g of, which is okay, diba? Okay lang naman yan kasi we get a real number. But, if we try then to get g's of 1/2, which is -4 raised to 1/2, or that's also equivalent to your square root of -4, we actually get a complex number, which is 2i. So, kaya hindi natin masyadong ina-allow na yung value ng b is negative para po hindi tayo magde-deal with complex numbers. So, we want to avoid this so that the requirement is that such that your b is greater than 0 para hindi na natin problema yung mga complex numbers. So, let's try to take a look at this example. You have your f of x is equal to 2 raised to x, and of course, your g of x is equal to 1/2 raised to x. So, the very first thing that we do is to get a table for these two functions. So, maglagay lang tayo ng any value of x, diba? -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. And then, kukunin natin yung values ng f of x tsaka g of x. Nandito naman po yung solution. So, if you get f of -2, you will get 1/4. F of -1 is 1/2. F of 0 is 1. F of 1 is 2. And f of 2 is 4. Dun sa kabila equation naman, g of -2 is 1/2 raised to -2 is equal to 4. G of -1 will give you 2. G of 0 is 1. G of 1 is 1/2. And G of 2 is 1/4. So, now that we could get, or nakuha na natin yung values ng inyong f of x and g of x at different values of x's, we could go ahead and sketch the graph of this particular functions. So yan, kapag i-graph nyo na siya, the red line is actually the graph for the function f of x is equal to 2 raised to x, and the blue line is the graph of g of x is equal to 1/2 raised to x. So pag mag-graph kayo, you just try and to place values in the graph para po ma-graph nyo po siya. So, di ba, gaya ng ginawa natin kanina, di ba, we tried then to place this particular values of your x, and then we tried solving for the function para mag-graph natin siya. So, for example, at x is equal to -2, the value of y is 1/4. So, kung titingnan nyo dito, at x is equal to -2, which is in this case, the value of y is 1/4. So, mag-start siya, tapos pag-ganon. So, this is the first point. Tapos, dun sa second point naman, na ginawa niya, at -1, the value of your y is 1/2. So, at -1, the value of y is 1/2. At 0, the value of y is 1. Tapos, at 1, the value of your y is 2. Diba? At 1, the value of y is 2. And at 2, the value of y is 4. So, once you have plotted the points, magka-create ka lang po ng line connecting those dots para po ma-sketch mo yung function. So, ganun din po yung sa ginawa niya sa isa pang function. Nag-plot lang siya ng mga points and then kinonect niya lang yung dots na yun. So, we go to the properties of your exponential function. So, ito lang some of the properties of your exponential function. Again, f of 0 is always equal to 0. F of x will never be equal to 0. F of x is greater than 0, meaning your exponential function is always positive. So, ito, we will try to deal with them later on. So this will all be very useful to recall at times as we move throughout this course and later for your higher calculus courses. So there's also a very important exponential function that arises naturally in many places, and this is what you call your natural exponential function. So when we say natural exponential function, that is your f of x is equal to your e raised to x, where e is 2.718, 281, 8284, 5905, and so on and so forth. Familiar kayo dito, nakikita nyo to sa calculators nyo, yung e symbol. So yan, it's called your natural exponential function. So, since the value of your e is greater than 1, we will also know that e raised to x will approach infinity as x approaches infinity, and that e raised to x will be equal to 0 as x approaches negative infinity. So what does this mean? Pag maglalagay ka ng value of x from infinity, so that will be greater than 1, yung value ng is of x mo mag-approach siya sa infinity, and habang yung value ng x mo is negative infinity, yung value ng is of x mo ay mag-approach siya sa 0. So let's take a look at an example. Let's sketch the graph of your h of t is equal to 1 minus 5 e raised to 1 minus t all over 2. So of course, let's first create the table of the values of the function. So, paborito niya, -2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So, you get the value of t. Kumbaga, substitute mo lang si -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3 doon sa equation. And then, you get the values of your h of t or your y. So, kapag ang t is -2, ang value is -35.9453. Pag ang value is -1, you will get -21.4084. Pag 0, it will be -12.5914. Pag 1, it will be negative 7.2436. Pag 2, it's negative 4. Pag 3, it's negative 2.037. And then, ipa-plot mo lang ito doon sa iyong Cartesian coordinate system. So, parang magiging ganito yung kanyang graph. Diba? Yan. So, yan na yun. So, let's go to your logarithmic function. Diba, natakal na natin si exponential, natural exponential, and then next is your logarithmic functions. Logarithms are one of the functions that most students fear. The main reason for this is kasi hindi siya masyadong nagagamit. So, parang pag nakakakita na ng log, ng lon, medyo parang natatakot na. But it's actually very easy once you nasanay na kayo in using this logarithmic functions. So as with the exponential function, we'll start with a value of b greater than 0 such that your b is not equivalent to 1, just as we did before. Then you will get y is equal to log of b times x, and this is equivalent to x is equal to b raised to y. Parang yung logarithm tsaka exponential, they are the inverse of each other. So if you get this particular function, equivalent din siya sa function na yan. So this is very important for you to know and understand kasi most of the time, it will be very convenient. Depende sa convenience, pwedeng ito convert nyo siya into that, or this convert it into that. Depende sa pangangailangan ng equation. The first is called your logarithmic form, and the second is called your exponential form. Remembering this equivalence is the key to evaluating logarithms, and of course the b here is what we call your base. So let's take a look at an example. Without a calculator, give the exact value of the following logarithms. So you have your log of 2, 16, or log of 16 to the base of 2, that's how you read it, and log of 1 over 5, 31441 to the base of 9. So let's try to evaluate each logarithm. So for this, it's very convenient to convert it into exponential form first. Although you could do this with a calculator, mas simple. Pero if you try then to convert it, you will get this. So log of 16 to the base 2 is equal to unknown, which is equivalent to 2 raised to an exponent is equal to 16. So kung titignan nyo siya in this form, di ba parang mas madali siyang isolve? 2 raised to a number is equal to 16. So we're really asking 2 raised to what gives 16. Since 2 raised to 4 is 16, we get log of 16 to the base 2 is equal to 4 because 2 raised to 4 is equal to 16. So in this case, mas madali siyang i-evaluate when you convert it into the logarithmic or to the exponential form rather. So let's take a look at the next example. Log of 1 all over 531,441 to the base 9 will give you, diba, negative 6 because 9 raised to negative 6 is equivalent to 1 over 9 raised to 6, or this is simply this one. So the answer is negative 6. Or you could just use your calculator. I'm just showing you na sometimes evaluating is easier when you convert it into exponential form, and sometimes it's easier when you convert it into logarithmic form. So there are a couple of special logarithms that arise in many places, and these are your ln of x, which we call your natural logarithm. Pag nakikita niyo yung ln function, this actually means that this is the log of x to the base e. Diba? Natural logarithm. Or your log of x, pag wala kang nakikitang value dun sa base, we call that your common logarithm, or its base is 10. So if you try then to sketch the ln of x and the log of x, ganito po yung magiging itsura niya. So yung ln of x is the red line and the log of x is your blue line. So natural versus common logarithm. So if we try then to analyze this graph, there are very nice properties about natural logarithm that we could use in your later calculus courses, such that your ln of x as x approaches infinity will approach infinity, and that as x approaches 0, your ln of x approaches negative infinity. So yun lang naman. Ibig sabihin lang, pag yung x mo lumalapit sa 0, yan, di ba parang for example here, pag yung value ng x mo ay lumalapit siya sa 0, yung x mo or yung ln of x mo mag-approach siya sa negative infinity. And kung yung x value mo is nag-approach siya sa infinity, so it's approaching to the right, yung ln of x value mo is mag-approach din siya sa right. So these are just some properties of your logarithmic function. Parang halos pareho din lang naman siya dun sa exponential function. What I want you to take a look more is 7, 8, and 9. So, di ba, log of xy to the base 10 is simply equivalent to log of x to the base b plus log of y to the base b. And kung division naman yung naging yung ating naging operation, mapapalitan lang siya ng negative sign. And kung naka-raise po yung siya sa exponent, yung exponent pwede mo siyang ilagay prior dun sa logarithm, such as this, r log of x to the base b. So, parang ganyan. Very important tong mga properties na to, class. Kasi most likely than not, itong mga properties na to yung lagi nating gagamitin. So, let's try to take a look at some examples. So, write each of the following in terms of simpler logarithms. So, you have your ln of x cubed y raised to 4 and z raised to 5. So, property 7 above can be extended to products of more than two functions. Once we've used property 7, then we can use property 9. So, ibig sabihin, di ba ito, since it's a multiplication operation, pwede natin siyang paghiwa-hiwalayin such that your ln of x cubed y raised to 4 and z raised to 5 will be equivalent to ln of x cubed plus ln of y raised to 4 plus ln of z raised to 5. And then using property 9, we could further simplify this into this. Diba? Yung 3 ln of x plus 4 ln of y plus 5 ln of z. So that is the simplest this function can be. So yan. And let's take a look at another example. Your ln of 9x raised to 4 over square root of y to the base 3. When using property 8 above, make sure that the logarithm that you subtract is the one that contains the denominator as its argument. So, ibig sabihin itong nasa denominator siya po yung ima-minus natin. Such that this becomes this, the log of 9x raised to 4 to the base 3 minus the log of y raised to 1/2 to the base 3. And then, we could simplify this further. Paghiwalayin natin si 9 tsaka si x raised to 4 such that we get log of 9 to the base 3 plus log of x raised to 4 to the base 3 minus the log of y raised to 1/2 to the base 3. And then, using property 9 again, yung mga exponent, ilagay natin siya prior to the logarithm. So, you will have, sinimplify na po ito, log of 9 to the base 3 is equivalent to 2 plus 4 log of x to the base 3 minus 1/2 log of y to the base 3. So that is the simplest form for this particular function. So let's go to the last one, your graph of functions. So the purpose of this particular section is to make sure that you are familiar with the graphs of many of the basic functions that you're liable to run across in your calculus. So, puro example po ang meron tayo dito sa graph of functions. So, for example, you have your y is equal to negative 2 over 5x plus 3. So, we are to graph this. Ang purpose nito is para po pag, kunyari nakita nyo na yung equation or your function, alam mo na agad kung ano yung itsura ng kanyang graph. So if you take a look, this is a line in the slope-intercept form y is equal to mx plus b. So in this case, we know that 0, 3 is a point on the line since, di ba, yung y-intercept mo is b. So, ibig sabihin, pag yung y-intercept mo is equal to b, i-cross niya yung y-intercept at point 3. So, ibig sabihin, yung y-intercept mo, or yung line mo, magkakross siya sa point 0, 3. 0 yung x, y is equal to 3. And the slope is negative 2 all over 5. So, solution. So, starting at 0 and 3, we'll move to the right. We'll move 5 to the right. Kasi, di ba, ang slope mo, m is equal to rise over run. So, ibig sabihin, you run to the right 5 times. And then down 2 times kasi negative po yung slope natin. So, kumbaga in this case, it's rise all over fall. Parang ganun siya. Such that, diba, sinimulan natin starting at the point 0 is equal to 3. And then, we move to the right 5 times. So, that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, we go down 2 times. So, from 3, 2, and then 1. So, ibig sabihin, ito na naman yung isa pang point natin. So, kung meron ka ng 2 points, you could simply draw a line across them. Diba? Pag nakita mo na yung function, alam mo na kung ano yung itsura ng graph. So, that's the purpose of this. So, let's take a look at another example. Graph f of x is equal to negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. So, this is a parabola in your general form. F of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Hindi ko na yata na-review yung parabola sa inyo. But anyway, please do help yourselves in reviewing your parabolas. So, in this form, the x-coordinate of the vertex, it might be the highest or lowest point of the parabola is x is equal to negative b minus 2a, and of course your y-coordinate is simply negative b all over 2a. So, yung x-coordinate and y-coordinate natin. That's how you actually get them. So, for our parabola, the coordinates of the vertex will be x is equal to, di ba, negative b. So, i-write ko na lang dito. Is equal to negative b all over 2a. In this case, yung b mo is 2, this is b, and of course, this is a. Yung a mo dito, di ba yung coefficient which is negative 1. So, ibig sabihin, yung x-coordinate mo is 1, and that, para makuha mo yung y, of course, i-evaluate mo lang si yung function at f of x, which is in this case 1. So, f of 1 is equal to 4. So, ibig sabihin, yung vertex ng parabola mo will be at points 1 and 4. So, yan. The vertex of the parabola is at points 1 and 4. 1, 4. So, x1, y4. So, we can also determine which direction the parabola opens from the sign of A. If A is positive, the parabola opens up. So, if A is positive, the parabola will open up. If A is negative, the parabola will open down. And in our case, the parabola opens down kasi yung A value natin is at negative 1. I-review nyo rin kung paano yung opening to the right and opening to the left na parabola. Now, because the vertex is above the x-axis, the parabola opens down. We know that we'll have x-intercepts, value of x wherein will have your value of y equal to 0. So, x-intercepts. Kasi, kumbaga, kung ipa-plot natin yung coordinate, yung ating parabola, di ba alam natin na it will open downwards. And ang vertex niya is 1, 4. So, ibig sabihin, if we try then to roughly graph it, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, dito yung kanyang vertex, it will open down. Diba mag-open down yung parabola natin? Meron tayong dalawang x-intercept. So, hanapin natin yung dalawang x-intercept na yun para mag-graph po natin yung ating function. So, negative x squared plus 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. So, para kahanapin mo yung roots of the function, ni-rearrange lang yung equation. Kumbaga, itong buo nilipat sa right side para we get rid of the negative sign of the value of your x squared. And then, we get the roots of the function. So, x minus 3 multiplied by x plus 1 is equal to 0. And now we know that the x-intercepts are at x is equal to negative 1 and x is equal to 3. So, if we sketch it, diba, yung vertex natin is at 4, 1. So, andyan. And of course, yung x-intercept natin is at negative 1 and positive 3. Pag meron ka na yan, pwede mo nang i-plot yung parabola or i-sketch yung parabola mo. So, ganyan siya. Or if you want to make sure na very accurate yung graph, and then you place a value of x equal to negative 1/2, and then you get the value of y. If x is equal to 0, you get the value of y. Ganun. Para mas accurate yung parabola mo. And then lastly, you have to graph x squared plus 2x plus y squared minus 8y plus 8 is equal to 0. So to determine just what kind of graph we've got here, we need to complete the squares on both the x and the y. So x squared plus 2x plus y squared minus 8y plus 8 is equal to 0. Let's just complete the square. So that will be x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus y squared minus 8y plus 16 is equal to negative 8 plus 1 plus 16. Such that if we try to simplify it further, you will get this particular answer. So, anong mapapansin nyo pag nakita nyo ng ganyan yung inyong function? We will see that we have a circle in its standard form. Diba? Ganito kasi yung sa circle and almost similar silang dalawa. So, therefore, we have an equation of the circle. When circles are in this form, we can easily identify the center and the radius. Once we have this, we can graph the circle and simply, by starting at the center and moving right, left, up, down by R to get the rightmost, leftmost, topmost, and bottommost points of the function respectively. So, ibig sabihin, kung yan po yung ating function, our circle has a center at negative 1 and 4, and of course the radius is 3. Sketching this will provide you this particular circle. Diba? Again, it's negative 1 and 4. So the center is around here, and if you measure that particular radius, it's actually 3. Or kung paganyan, diba, kung bibilangin mo, from negative 1 to 0 to 1 to 2 is 3. So that's how you, those are the graphs that you need to familiarize yourselves with. Line, circles, and parabolas. Kung meron mga ellipses later on, siguro I will just review the graphs of them as well. So that's it for this particular video. Sorry, medyo mahaba siya, but I allotted one meeting kasi for this particular functions. And of course, the next topic is on module number 3. Please keep posted for the upcoming videos that I will still be uploading. And of course, as I always say, class, stay home, stay healthy, and stay safe. Goodbye, everyone.